The older I get, the more I realize that in life, a lot of things are just trends that kind of come and go and come and go and come and go. And that's true not only in life, but that's true in the garage gym industry too. And when I was at Home Gym Con this year, that's one of the things that I really noticed was some of the trends that were coming, some of the trends that were going, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the GymCrafter podcast. Welcome back to the GymCrafter podcast, everybody. My name is Tim. I am the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com. And yes, I'm talking about Home Gym Con still. I've got a couple more podcasts to do, but we're not talking about the vendors or the booths. Today, we're talking about kind of a higher level topic, which is garage gym trends. And I've got 3 equipment specific trends for you to talk about today, and I've got 3 that are just kind of in the industry. Now, I saw a lot more when I was there. If you were to sit down, especially with a couple other people, and just start talking about what you saw as far as just universally, when you get the whole industry together under one roof, you can really start to see some patterns happening that you may not get if you're not looking at that picture. And it was really fun to try and spot these trends. So I figured that would make a good podcast episode. I definitely want to hear what you guys say in this episode and what your thoughts are, because a lot of these trends depend on you guys spending money on stuff or you guys not spending money on stuff. And I'm really curious to know if what I kind of saw lines up with where you guys plan to spend or not spend your money. So with that said, let's get on. Like I said, I've got 3 that are specific to gear and I've got 3 that are specific to just the industry, and we're going to start off with the equipment trends. Now, if you've watched this podcast or you follow the channel at all, you know where I'm going to start. And that's Smith machines. So in my life, I've seen Smith machines come and go at least 2 other times that I can think of. They got really popular, they went away. They got really popular, they went away. And we've talked a lot, or I've talked a lot on this channel about why people like Smith machines. They seem to be easier to use to people. They feel a little safer. They are more applicable to the whole family. If you're a bodybuilder, they've got some bodybuilding applications. There's lots of good reasons that people put a Smith machine in their home. The problem with Smith machines is they've also got a lot of drawbacks, right? They're not good for you biomechanically. They don't operate in the plane of motion that your body does, and over time, misuse or overuse of a Smith machine without other exercises thrown in can cause injuries. Like I said, I've seen these things come and go a couple times before, and that is the primary reason that they come and go. They also come and go because while you can do a lot of things on them, they're not as versatile as other stuff, and they take up a lot of room on your rack. And I think a lot of people, especially the first 2 times they came and went, you just basically bought, there weren't all-in-one trainers with Smiths. You bought a Smith machine, and I think people bought these big giant things, and they put them in their house, and they went, I've got like my whole basement taken up with this one Smith machine, and I'd like to have other things. So that's another reason I saw them go away before. This time, as I was looking across Home Gym Con, what I'm seeing is something really interesting, which I was kind of fascinated by. And that's that this time, people are seeing the problems with the Smith machine, but they're addressing them with innovation instead of just going away from the Smith machine trend. So what you're seeing now is, instead of standalone Smith machines, you're seeing all-in-one racks with Smiths built in as part of it. Instead of having to buy an all-in-one rack, you're seeing rack-attached Smith machines, right? Like, so there were a lot of people there that showed Smiths that you could actually attach to your rack. By the way, best one there by far at the show was Reps. The Rep Fitness rack attached Smith machine was really impressive. It was head and shoulders better than everybody else's. A relatively close second was Bells of Steel. But those 2 are great examples of one of the innovations that you're seeing, which is the Rep Fitness one is going to have this, and the Bells of Steel already has this, which is they are a bring your own bar, meaning that you can get the bar off the stupid machine and free up that area in your rack to do other things, which is one of the drawbacks of an all-in-one trainer or a Smith machine that's bolted on or welded on permanently, is it just takes up a lot of room. It gets in the way. So you're seeing that innovation. You're also seeing things like the Bulletproof Fitness VTS, and you're seeing Rep Fitness is going to actually have independent attachments for their Smith machine so that you can do unilateral movements instead of bilateral movements. So now you've got something that wasn't necessarily the most versatile thing in the world, and you've made it a lot more versatile. So that was really cool. RitFit showed the 3D Smith machine. Go back and watch my RitFit video if you don't know what I'm talking about, but they actually showed a Smith machine that not only moves up and down, but also glides forward and back. And that one was the most interesting thing to me, is that that addresses the biomechanical issues with a Smith machine. Almost no lifts, are in a perpendicular straight up and down motion. Even if you have the Smith machines that allow you to angle them out, and that's another innovation you're seeing is these bolt-on Smiths. They allow you to kind of lean them back a little bit so that you can get at least a little bit better plane of motion for some movements, but that doesn't match, that straight movement of the bar doesn't match the biomechanics of anything except for probably a perfect squat. And even then, I know very few people who can do a perfect squat. I'm definitely not one of them. When I look at my bar path, I try and keep it straight up and down, but there are areas where it moves forward and back just because of how my body's made. And one of the cool things about the RitFit 3D Smith machine, and I know that I can't say who or how many, but I know there's people already trying to work with them to make this a rack attached thing that you could actually attach to your rack, which I think would be kind of cool. And what would be neat is that we're seeing these innovations where it's addressing the biomechanical issues. So it's addressing the reason why people used to get injury, they used to get overuse injury from using Smith machines too much. It happened a lot. So much so that health clubs actually took them out of the floor of the exercise floor. And that's, now you know how old I am. I called it a health club. That's going to come back later. But anyway, so they just disappeared, right? And the 3D Smith machine actually addresses that. So I thought it was a really cool trend to see that, okay, Smith machines, I think they're actually, I said they were going to go away. I might be wrong on that. In fact, I think I might have been wrong on that. I think they're going to stay, but what I think is going to happen is I think that they're going to get iterated and they're going to get developed to the point where they don't look like the Smith machines of old, and you're going to have all of the things that people like, the ease of use, the safety, the ability to push more weight on them, but you're going to have it in a way that is friendly to your joints, that gets out of the way of the rack, that you can put your own bar in. So it was really cool to see that trend and the trend of developing this thing that really should have gone away, but instead is actually getting better. So my question for you guys, what do you think? Are they going to be able to iterate these things to where they're actually functional, viable additions to most people's gyms? Are they going to stay like a specialty thing for the bodybuilder crowd? Because honestly, as far as training effect goes, the only training style that actually truly benefits from a Smith machine is bodybuilding. If you do any other kind of training, you don't need a Smith machine. A Smith machine doesn't add to your training at all. I'm sure there's going to be people that argue with me about this in the comments, but in the end, as a trainer, I've never once, for anybody training for anything other than bodybuilding, thought, we really need a Smith machine for this. Like dumbbells, barbells, body weight, rings, like you can get most things done. You can get everything else done without a Smith machine. So what do you guys think? Do you think these are going to continue to be more popular? Do you think you're going to see more people doing that 3D Smith design? Because that's actually not, I'm sure somebody's going to put it in the comments again. It's actually got a name. It's been around. It's not a RitFit invention. It's just something that they pulled out of the way back machine and brought it back. It's a thing that I think people tried to do in the past to address the issues of the movement plane. But what do you guys think? You guys think they're going to stick around? You think next year's Home Gym Con, we're going to see everybody's got an upgraded rack attached Smith machine that they can sell to you that you can bolt onto whatever you happen to have? I'm interested in all of these trends. Let me know down in the comments. I love having these discussions with you guys. Let me know what you think about Smith machines. And that leads to trend number 2, and that is that all-in-one machines are actually getting a lot better. Let me explain. So all-in-one machines have been around for a long time. For those of you who don't know, the first company to sell a true all-in-one machine. And what I mean by an all-in-one, it's a rack that you can do barbell lifting on. It's got a Smith machine in, and it's got a cable system, either plate loaded or selectorized. Very popular thing right now, right? But the first people to ever bring this to the US was Force USA. It's one of the reasons that I talk so highly of them is that they are the originators of this, right? Now, they weren't the originators in the world. It was an idea they brought from other countries to the US, but they were the first ones to start selling them in the US, and they've been extraordinarily popular ever since. I've talked about this in other podcasts, but most folks aren't home gym nerds, right? Most folks don't want what I see behind this camera right now. Even people come into this gym and see what's behind me that you guys can see, which is it's just a rack with a cable system and then a rack of dumbbells. I can't tell you how many people I brought in to show the gym and they're like, that's a lot, dude. Like that's a gym right there. Like most people don't want that, but they're cool with an all-in-one. So they've always been popular with what folks in the fitness industry call Gen Pop, right? The general population Not Gen Pop, prison Gen Pop, that's a whole different story of how they work out. But for folks outside of prison, all-in-ones tend to be a pretty popular thing. But they've also tended to be, with a few exceptions, with the exception of Force USA, with the exception of some other companies out there, they've always been kind of a thing that your rogues and your reps and things like that, the true kind of fitness-focused companies, your CrossFit-focused companies, kind of look down their nose at. They're like, oh, that's not. And I know a lot of people who work out who are like, all-in-ones, it's just the cheap stuff. Why would you want that, right? And so one of the trends I've noticed is I'm finally seeing kind of the fitness industry kind of realize that, there's a lot of people out there who just want to buy a gym. They don't want to put together a gym piece by piece. They just want to buy a gym, and an all-in-one is, especially a selectorized, is a great way to do that. But they're realizing that people are actually willing to pay for a nice all-in-one. That's one of the interesting things. Almost every Force USA video I've ever made, you look in the comment section and there's a ton of people who are like, bro, I would never pay $5,000 for that. That's ridiculous. I could buy a Rogue rack for that. And it's like, or I always pick on Rogue. I don't mean to, it tends to be the brand that those comments bring up, but I get that comment a lot. Like, I could buy a Titan rack for half that. I could buy a Bells of Steel rack and a cable machine for that much money. Why would I want to buy, there's a lot of why would I want to buy that? And it's like, okay, well, you wouldn't want to buy that, but a lot of people would. And there's a lot of people out there who want to just buy a gym, who have a decent amount of money available to spend on a gym. And that's one of the interesting things to me about looking at the all-in-ones that were there this year versus the ones that were there last year and what I've seen in the past. So typically what I noticed last year at Home Gym Con was, it was like, let's take a rack and see how much crap we can stuff in this rack, right? It was just a lot of like, how much stuff can we cram in here, right? It wasn't a matter of quality, it wasn't a matter of usability. You got a lot of like claustrophobic designs, you got a lot of stuff that interfered with things you couldn't, they weren't great, right? And what I noticed this year is that the companies are actually putting a lot more effort into making high quality all-in-ones that have stuff that typically only, your typical, I'm gonna buy a 6-post rack and a barbell person would actually ever buy for their rack. You saw all-in-ones with jammer arms. I saw RitFit show those. I saw ATX show several all-in-ones with jammer arms. You're looking at Force USA showed the C20, which I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on this, but it's gonna be probably between $5,000 and $6,000, but has just stepped up their game across the entire unit. I did shoot a video on that. If you're interested, check that out. But what I saw was just people were really, really, really upping the quality of these all-in-ones. So it looks like to me, one of the trends that I saw just as far as equipment goes is that all-in-ones are definitely here to stay, and that the quality levels of those all-in-ones are really actually getting really nice. There were a few, including that C20, where I was like, man, if this didn't have a Smith machine on it, back to that Smith machine thing, but if this didn't have, I'd put this in my house. There's a few of those ATX racks, and actually I'm sitting in front of one, right? The Dane 2 is a great example. It's a high quality, it's a half rack, it's 3x3, it's well built, it's got nice heavy selectorized stacks on it, good smooth cable system, just a really versatile machine. And I think you're seeing more and more of this, and I really think for home gyms where space is at a premium, budgets are at a premium, to be able to buy something that's got everything in one footprint, it's gonna be nice to be able to see over the next year or two just how much nicer do these things get. But that leads to my question for you guys, and I've really thought about this a lot and I don't know what the answer is. I'm really curious to see where the industry goes. When we talk about trends coming and going and coming and going, is this just a trend? And let me explain. So as much as I like the Dane, if I didn't have a YouTube channel and I had to start over from scratch, I wouldn't buy this. I would buy a standalone cable system, like even if it was like a wall-mounted Aries that Rep showed at the convention, or like my Bells of Steel cable tower, which is right here, which I really, really love. And then I would just buy a plain rack. So for me, I've had this, I like it. If I didn't have a whole garage and so forth, this is a great solution. But for me, I'm kind of getting tired of cramming a bunch of stuff in the rack. Like the same thing was true of Bulletproof Fitness. It's like, okay, that's cool that you can stick all that stuff on your rack, but like, man, I just want a rack, right? Like, So what do you guys think? Are we going to continue to see the growth of this all-in-one category? Are your more hardcore lifters, are they going to go for this type of a system, or are they going to stay with separates? I'm wondering if, are we going to see this get popular for the next couple of years, and then you'll see a couple of players get really good at it? Force USA, this is what they do for a living, so I don't see them ever changing. But like, will ATX's entry where you're bringing in all these really nice higher end all-in-ones, are those going to be a fad? And we're going to go back to separates where people buy machines and rack separate, which is a hint for one of the next topics, or are all-in-ones just going to keep getting better and better and better, and they're going to become more of a standard thing than 10 years ago when you were looking at home gym stuff and Rogue and Titan were two of the only people in the game. It was really just lots of 4 and 6 post racks, right? Like that's what people had. So I'm wondering, being that I know from personal history that trends come and go, what do you guys think? What do you guys think is going to happen with this all-in-one trend? Are you going to see everybody make one? Are you going to see people just stop making them? Are you going to see them just get really good? Are people going to cram just way too much stuff in these things? Where do you guys think this all-in-one trend is going? And that kind of moves us on to trend number 3 with equipment. And this was a big one. So when I was at the show and I talked to most of the manufacturers there, I'm going to give you guys a chance to put this in the comments. What do you think the most asked for machine for home gyms is? What's the most requested by customers? It's not even close, by the way. It's like number 1 with a bullet. And I don't include an all-in-one as a machine, but just like an actual, what function, what machine do people want the most? So you guys put that answer down in the comments. Let me know what you think. And then let me know if you got it right, because I'm going to tell you what it is in 3, 2, 1. It's leg developers. Leg developers were all over the show. And I'm not sure when they started getting called leg developers. I don't know if that's a freak athlete thing because they called their attachment a leg developer, or if that came around before them. But what I'm talking about is leg curl, leg extension machines. It's the number 1 thing, apparently, that people ask for as far as a machine in their gym, which is weird to me because there's so many ways to train your legs. And I'm going to do a whole long episode on how to pick the right leg developer for your gym, because there's so many different ones. There's a $3,000 selectorized leg developer from Titan that was there that a lot of people liked. There were leg curl, leg extensions that were standalone, that were plate loaded, that were much less expensive. RitFit showed a prototype of their upgraded. I'm looking at one from them, which is their version 1, but their upgraded version 2, man, they made some super cool changes that allow you to change the force curve based on moving the weight loader. There's a lot. There were a lot. The 2 that I shot videos, the first 2 videos I dropped outside of my live stream from Home Gym Con were the Rep Fitness leg developer and the Dialed Motion leg developer. So talk about a trend. This is super popular in home gyms now. And it seems like the decision for most home gym people is, do I go with a standalone unit, or do I go with something that tries to save a little bit of money and space and go with something that attaches to a bench? Like Iron Master has one you can attach to their super bench. Bells of Steel has one that you can attach to several of their benches. Freak Athlete has one that you can attach to their bench. Rep Fitness now has one. The Dialed Motion one is a bench attached one. So, do you do a standalone machine? Like I brought home an ATX leg developer, which is right over here. Can't wait to show you guys. Really cool. I have a RitFit right here. I definitely have more than I need right now. So, but do you go that route, or do you go the bench attached? And I think that the trend that I'm seeing is, at least for the leg developers, is for the popular machines. I see the industry going, okay, people want this function, but how do we actually get it into a home gym? And it's going to be really neat. I think that we're going to see the trend of taking full-size machines and shrinking them down to garage gym specific pieces of equipment. And the thing that really made me think about that was the Dialed Motion leg developer. The Dialed Motion leg developer was clearly designed from the ground up to be a garage gym piece. All of the other ones, the Titan one, this RitFit one, this ATX one, these are all machines that go in commercial gyms that people just now buy for their homes. That's just kind of what they are. And the cool trend that I saw, and it's just starting with these leg development, and we're going to talk about this as an overall industry trend too, but that you're seeing these big machines shrunk down. And I think Bulletproof is another example of this, where they're trying to take, their isolators are a good example, where they're like, how can we take these big machines and make it into something rack attached? Now, I've got my own opinions on Bulletproof, which we'll talk about in another podcast. It's a lot. They were like, it was an intimidating booth, and I'll talk a lot about more about that in a different podcast. But I think that the trend, the idea, the movement of trying to take the commercial gym stuff and shrink it down into home gym or garage gym type of equipment was really interesting. So what do you guys think? Have you guys seen that? Have you guys seen like, hey, I can't get X, but man, I would love it if I could attach it to my rack. You know, the Freak Athlete's a good example of that. A GHD, a reverse hyper, a back extension, like they took all this stuff and they're like, okay, those are all great machines that people use independently in a commercial gym. How do we make that stuff for a garage gym? And I think the Freak Athlete Hyper Pro is a great example of taking a bunch of commercial gym stuff or health club stuff. Sorry, I can't get over that, I keep calling it that. But, and shrinking it down into a garage gym specific piece of gear. And it's really, really cool to watch. So what do you guys think? What type of stuff do you think needs to be shrunk down and really just reimagined into something that is much better for a garage gym? And a good comparison is that Rep Fitness leg developer, as cool as that is, everybody went crazy over that. And I think that of the stuff that looks like that, it's the best one, right? It's really well designed. It's got cable attachment, it's got weight horn attachment, it's going to hook into all their benches with the accessory port. I think it's a really cool piece. And then you saw the dialed motion one and you're like, oh, that one just made all of the other ones look dumb, right? Because it's compact, it's light, it attaches to all benches, it stores on the wall, like it solves all of the garage gym problems. But if you'd ask somebody 6 months ago if bench attached leg developers or standalone leg developers were going to catch on, you probably would have had a lot of people say no because they take up a lot of room and people in their garage gyms don't have a lot of room. So it was a very long way of asking you guys what other stuff needs to have that kind of metamorphosis happen, right? What other equipment that is popular in a commercial gym needs to crawl inside of an inventor's cocoon and then reemerge as something awesome for your garage gym. And that leads me really nicely into the fourth trend. And now we're going to get into just general industry trends that I saw. And we're going to explain why I keep using the term health club. So I often mention in this podcast that I'm tall and that I'm old. And I'm both of those, right? I'm 54 years old. But let me give you an example of just how old I am. I remember Bally's Health Club. How many of you guys out there remember Bally's Health Club? So way back in the day, there weren't commercial gyms. It wasn't a thing, right? Only weirdos worked out. You had Jazzercise in the 80s. That's also how old I am. But you had some stuff like that. But going to a gym wasn't a thing. And then Bally's came along and they were really, at least in my area, I know there were some other ones. I think 24-Hour Fitness might have been one of the early ones out on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. But you had these health clubs, and that's what they call them, health clubs, right? Fitness wasn't a term. Weightlifting definitely wasn't a thing, right? So you were a weirdo if you wanted to go lift weights back in the day. Back in the 80s, yeah, you were a strange bird if you wanted to lift weights. But they had these health clubs, and when you went into these health clubs, what you would see is this. You would see, and you kind of see this, like walk into a Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness is kind of like the new version of Bally's. It's a sea of cardio equipment because to most general folks, most of the general population, your average folks think that working out is cardio, right? Like if you ask somebody, hey, you need to lose weight, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna go run on a treadmill. Like that's still the most common answer. It drives me nuts. But the Bally's was that. And then they also had machines for weight training. They did have some resistance training, but it was all machines. There were no free weights. There might have been some light dumbbells, but there were no racks. There were no barbells. There were no weight plates. There was none of that stuff. That stuff belonged in like the Gold's Gym where only like the big jacked monsters went. Like if you watch Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, you get an idea of what weightlifting gyms looked like back in the day. But Bally's was the first one that really appealed to a lot of people. And the reason for that is quite simply a lack of education, right? The people who wanted to work out back then thought that Jazzercise was how you got in shape. And for those of you who don't know what Jazzercise is, Google that. I promise you it's worth it. It's pretty crazy. Not only the clothes, but what people thought was fitness. So the interesting thing is that when you're building a health club where you have people, and this was the first time that they had people with monthly memberships, so you had to get people to give you money to belong here and actually to come here and actually to use the stuff. Well, the problem is if you filled a club like that with free weights, nobody would know what to do and nobody would use those things. There's this weird like time period for like 20 years or so where even the places that had a squat rack, they had one, it was in the corner, it was covered in dust, they had a horrible barbell, they had a few mismatched, plates. There just wasn't a lot of interest. And the reason for that is education. People didn't know how to use free weights, but if you put a single purpose machine in front of people, and I think this is why leg developers' leg extensions are so popular. Like, it's much easier for me to get into a machine, lock into it, and then open my leg up and down because there's no learning curve, right? Like, just get in, set the rollers to the right amount so they're comfortable, put in a weight that works, and away you go, right? And that's where these Bally's Health Clubs and 24-hour fitnesses and even, like I said, the Planet Fitnesses today. It's real easy you know what to do on a treadmill. You know what to do on an elliptical. You know what to do on a rowing machine. You know what to do on the good girl, bad girl machine. You know what to do on a pec deck. You know what to do on all these machines, right? So what broke us out of that is CrossFit. CrossFit came along, and love CrossFit, hate CrossFit, however you feel about it. I think I've made my feelings clear on it over the course of this channel. I wasn't a huge fan. Everybody that ever worked for me that did CrossFit consistently got injured. I think that's a pretty well-known thing. Even people who would swear that you don't get hurt doing CrossFit. I mean, I did hurt my shoulder. It was crazy. But anyway, but there's a couple really awesome things that CrossFit did, and nobody can deny this. 3 that I can think of. Number 1, it showed people the value of resistance training. Regardless of whether you agree with the technique or the format or how they taught people to do it, it had people come in and they're like, that's what we have is squat racks and barbells, right? That's what we got. That's what you're gonna use. So it taught people the value. People walking around doing CrossFit were like jacked and thin and people were like, I wanna look like that CrossFit person, right? Turns out a lot of them were on steroids, but that's a whole nother story. But they were like, weight training, yes, weight training. And then you would go to a CrossFit box, and another cool thing is that now people were willing to pay to go to a place that wasn't a health club. It was a place you went to lift weights. Awesome. And the third thing that they did, which is the best thing, is that if you went to a good box, they taught you how to lift. And of all the people that I've ever taught how to lift, none of them want to go back to the machines, right? They like have a machine that they like here or there, but for the most part, once you understand and learn how to train with free weights, for most people, that becomes your primary method of training because it works the best, it's the most versatile, it's the most rewarding, it's one of the safest, right? So when done correctly. So CrossFit really did that. And what happened when CrossFit got popular? They needed equipment. And who made equipment? Rogue made equipment. And Rogue threw a ton of marketing money into CrossFit. And people, general population folks, average people watched the CrossFit games on ESPN. And they saw Rogue barbells and Rogue weights and Rogue racks. And all of a sudden, the real home gym, now, there'd always been people working out at home. I had a Sears weight set when I was a kid. But the real home gym kind of revolution really sparked off with people buying that CrossFit equipment from Rogue for their home. Like I said, even when I first started doing this, GymCrafter's been around for 7 years. I've been doing this style of training in my home for a little over 10. Really, Titan and Rogue and some really crappy Amazon brands, man, those were really the only things that you had to choose from. But CrossFit came along and they made weight training cool. Well, CrossFit's dead. I hate to say it. We're going to go ahead and put a tombstone up on the screen if I think about it while I'm editing this, but CrossFit is kind of no more. There's still CrossFit boxes around, but the organization's having lots of trouble. They've gone bankrupt, I believe. They've changed ownership a couple times. They're just, I believe Rogue stopped sponsoring, or at least to the same level, stopped sponsoring CrossFit. And it's been amazing to me how quickly the trend of squat racks and barbells and weight plates and weight benches for home gyms has transitioned to machines. When I looked across the floor of Home Gym Con this year, yes, there were racks there, but there were way, way, way more machines, and a lot of the racks that were there had machine alternatives attached to the racks. And I don't know if that's because we don't have people at CrossFit making weight training cool anymore, if we don't have CrossFit boxes teaching people how to lift so that they know what to do without having to buy a machine. I don't know if that's because the home gym industry is growing and you're seeing lots more medical studies coming out, really extolling how important resistance training is. I mean, study after study after study after study is coming out. Even your average doctor is going, you should start weight training, Mrs. Smith, who's 75 years old. Like, it does so many good things for you. Resistance training is one of the absolute best things that anybody can do for their health at any age, and it's finally getting out there to the public that that's the case. So now we've got a lot of people walking into their home gym, and it's a lot like a Bally's Health Club, right? Like, I don't know what to do with this rack and barbell and dumbbell, but I kind of know what to do with an all-in-one. Interesting story, I did a video on the C10 for Force USA, did really, really well. I think the number one comment over time I've gotten on that is in the video, they had exercise charts. Like you see, like you go to the hotel and there's an all-in-one trainer and there's exercise charts. The number one things I got contacted is I bought a C10 and it didn't have those exercise charts. What am I supposed to do with this thing without the exercise charts, right? Like, so I think that people, as they're starting to get into home gyms and want to train at home, and a lot of folks who start training now, you know, Mrs. Smith at 75 years old doesn't necessarily want to go to a commercial gym, right? Although might be the best thing she could do. I promise you, Mrs. Smith, if you're watching, I promise you that there's people there who will help you and you'll really like going. But if you do want to work out at home, I think that a lot of people who are just now getting into it are like, I don't want to learn how to lift, but I can sit down in a leg extension, leg curl, and do that exercise, and I can feel it work my legs, and gee, that works for me, and I'll get into like the ATX vertical chest press. As a viewer pointed out, it's not necessarily the most biomechanically best way to do a chest press, but your average person can stand in the thing, grab the handles, and push them forward. There's literally no other technique needed. It's a super easy machine to use. It feels great. It gives you good range of motion. So that's a trend that I really saw. It was a very long-winded way to tell you that what I saw is I just saw so many machines. And so what I want to know from you guys is that going to continue to happen, right? Is that going to continue to be where a home gym, instead of like what it's been for like the last 10 or 15 years, where it's a rack, 4 or 6 posts, some bars, weights, maybe you get a functional trainer, just a 2-station functional trainer. Maybe you get like a nicer weight bench that you can do, decline sit-ups on. That's been what it's been, but do you think it's going to transition to where the home gym of the future is either going to be like an all-in-one? Because again, all-in-ones, if you get a chart, and oh, by the way, Force USA now is going to sell a chart that you can buy, I believe. I saw it at the show, where you can actually buy it that'll show you what exercises to do. Is it going to be all-in-ones with those exercise charts? Is it going to be like a whole garage or basement full of machines so people can go from just station to station like they did in those old school health clubs? What do you guys think? Where's it going to go? I thought it was super interesting. I was really kind of shocked I knew there were a lot of machines on the market, but again, when you see everything in one place, man, I was really shocked. This is a floor full of machines. Like, there were so many, even the companies who were like, even Rogue, right? Even Rogue, who built the whole home gym thing with racks in your garage, they bought, I forget the name of the company, they bought another company. They brought that company's leg machine. It didn't get very good reviews, but you can even see like even Rogue, who has made their bones on racks and bars and traditional resistance training, brought some machines. So I thought that was an interesting trend. What do you guys think? You think that's going to continue? Do you think that's a fad? Do you think people are going to realize that the amount of money and space that machines take, it's just easier to do a rack and barbell? Do you think, I don't think barbell training will ever go away, but do you think it will go back to the point where it's been relegated to just a dusty rack in the corner? What do you guys think? Where do you guys think this is going to go? It's been, like I said, it was a really interesting thing to see in the show. And if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. If you weren't, I'm telling you, there were so many machines. And that dovetails real nicely into trend number 5. Trend number 5 is the realization that the home gym, the garage gym industry is a little tiny, early, small, itty-bitty young baby of an industry. It's really only 5 years old if you think about it. So, did Rogue make working out at home popular? Yes, it made it popular enough for it to be an industry. In 2020, what happened in 2020, where we all got stuck at home and the entire world had to stay at home, that is what really, in my opinion, that was the genesis of the modern day home gym industry. That's what started all of the stuff that we saw at the show. Most of those companies started in the last 5 years. Most of those products were developed in the last 5 years. Most of those products that were around before that didn't get popular until the last 5 years. But like I mentioned earlier on, almost all of those products, are things that you saw in those old school commercial gyms and health clubs that have just been put into people's homes. John Greaves talks about this a lot over at the Garage Gym Life YouTube channel, is that Rogue is not a home gym company. I think a lot of people, including myself, we get kind of upset that you go to these trade shows or you see them in places and they don't seem to really care. There's a few people that work for them that do, and they're good people and they really treat people well. But on the whole, the biggest piece of feedback I got from the Rogue booth is it didn't seem like they cared that I was there. And I don't think that they do, because they're a commercial company. Their bread and butter isn't us, right? It's nice to sell to us. I'm sure they make a decent amount of money off of us, but they're a commercial company that sells to people to put in their home. They're not a home gym company. They haven't designed much of anything to be a home gym piece. But a really cool trend that I'm starting to see is, being that this industry is now exploding, being that there's now so many people developing home gyms or putting home gyms in their home, there's so many people out there training at home, realizing the value of not only training in the first place, but the value of having the gym in your house, right? It's worth the extra money. It used to be, the old trope was, oh, if you do a home gym, you'll save money. No, you won't. You'll spend a lot more money on a home gym than you will on a gym membership. But it's just better. It's worth more money, right? But the cool thing that I saw is we're now starting, is just the beginning. We're just starting to see people develop products for home gyms, specifically. Not commercial gym stuff that we just put in a home, make it a little bit smaller, make it a little bit lighter gauge steel, make it a little bit less expensive, make it a little bit less overbuilt, and then we'll put it in your garage. No, stuff built specifically for home gyms. The dialed motion leg developer is one of them. It was really cool to see that's a product that is designed for garage gyms. It doesn't belong in a commercial gym. It'll never get sold to a commercial gym, but wow, does it belong in and it will be in my garage gym. Another one that was there, which I didn't get a chance to shoot a video on, but I wish I had, was the Quantum Trainer. This is something that's really cool. If you haven't checked out the Quantum Trainer, check it out. It's just kind of a very, very unique machine, but I don't think it would ever survive in a commercial gym. Now, here's where somebody tells me that it's based on a power tech model that was developed in the 70s for commercials. Like, okay, whatever. But this piece is made for garage gyms. It's super versatile. It's super easy to use. It's a very, very unique design. If you want to see a lot about the Quantum Trainer, go check out the Hybrid Resistance YouTube channel. Great YouTube channel. Man, dude, you've been on a tear lately. If you're watching this, I can't believe how many videos you've been releasing lately. It makes my head hurt to think of how much time you're spending editing. But he does a great job. He's got a Quantum Trainer, speaks very, very highly of it, and it can give you some good walkthroughs and what it is. I'm going to have a hard time here explaining what it is. It's kind of like a lever gym, but not a lever gym. You can do just about any exercise on it. It's a smaller footprint, but not a small footprint. So you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'll put a picture up on here when I'm editing, or a couple pictures so you can see. But that is a piece that in my mind was developed for garage gyms. Like, it was developed for us at home. It wasn't developed to go put in your local, your local Planet Fitness or your local Bally's. They're not around anymore, but it wasn't developed for that. Freak Athlete is another one. Like, Freak Athlete is another one that doesn't belong in a commercial gym. That's something that was designed, like I said, they took a bunch of these commercial gym pieces and went, the movements are valuable, the movement patterns are valuable, the exercises are valuable. Let's put them in a format or a form that goes into a garage gym. The interesting thing to me about the Freak Athlete is I can't wait to see what the Freak Athlete looks like 3 generations from now. I imagine they've iterated pretty well, but it's just that type of a product is a little bit unrefined. And I think that with some refinement, those types of products are really going to wow a lot of us. They're really going to provide a lot of value in the home gym community. But it's something that, again, it's made for garage gyms. The Voltras is another one that's made for home gym people. It's made for apartment gym people. It's made for people who want to work out in their offices. It's made for people who want to take something good with them to a hotel if they travel a lot. That thing is made for people training at home. If there weren't home gyms, I'm pretty sure the Voltra wouldn't exist. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Voltra wouldn't exist. They might have developed it, like I know the Anchor stuff is in a lot of pro sports teams' locker rooms, so it does have some really cool athletic training applications. I talked about that in the last episode. If you didn't listen to the last episode, go check that out. I spent a lot of time talking about that. I don't want to rehash it here. But for the most part, to me, that strikes me as a home gym product. So, my question for you guys on trend number 5. In the next 5 to 10 years, and you walk into a newly built garage, somebody that builds their garage gym from scratch in 5 or 10 years, is it gonna be a rack and a bar and a leg extension, leg curl, and like a cable machine? Or is it gonna be all kinds of stuff that we've never even thought of before? Where there's just some super smart fabricators and developers out there who are like, I'm just gonna design this for the ground up to be in a garage, right? And to me, it's super exciting, right? Like, it's really neat to be in an industry that's this young. It's weird to say that it's this young, but it really is, guys. This stuff 5 years ago wasn't even an inkling of an idea in most people's heads, and now it is because so many of us are training at home. So what do you guys think? Like, what are these garage gyms gonna look like? Is all of this equipment that I'm looking at in this gym just gonna be completely obsolete and selling on Facebook Marketplace for $10? And it's all gonna be, Voltras and Anchors and freak, like, are you just gonna have like a freak athlete that's added like 17 more functions and you bolt on a couple of Voltras and when you're done, you stick it in your corner and that, like, is that what it's gonna be? I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think is going to happen? And that leads very nicely into the last trend that I saw. And it's another trend that is at the very start of, it's in its infancy. And so trend number 6 is the introduction of smart devices into our training. So a couple of observations first. We are still in like Gen 0 for smart device. I would probably put Voltra as a Gen 1 or a V1 smart device. I think that we're just we're just scratching the surface of what these can do. Gen 0 would be like tonal. Gen 0 would be like, Averon was at the show, so they have like gamified rowers, so that's kind of like Gen 0. It's like a very basic application. Speedience was at the show, which, sorry Speedience, you gotta up your quality game. I wasn't super thrilled with it. I know that they do a great job of marketing, but not the best product. Although I don't like that type of product to start with, so maybe I'm biased. I think Tonal's horrible. I think Speedience is a cheap version of Tonal. So I don't think either one of them are worth your money. But that's because, like I said, I think they're Gen 0 stuff. But one of the trends that I saw is you're just starting to see more and more and more introduction of smart devices. And a great example is all the different ways that you can mount a Voltra. I saw somebody online recently, they mounted 2 Voltras at the bottom of their leg press, so they don't have to load the leg press. And you can change the resistance curve, you can do drop sets, you can do all the Voltra stuff, but you can do it on a leg press. Don't think that's enough weight? Go check out Kaizen DIY YouTube channel. He has a way where you can double the load of your Voltra. So if you take 2 Voltras and then double the load, that's plenty of weight for almost anybody to do almost any exercise. So when you start looking at that creativity and you're applying these smart devices, I really think that we're just scratching the surface of how these are going to apply. I think that hopefully, a lot of the products that I get to review, they come with an app. I've got some walking pads that I'm reviewing. I've done one already. I've got 2 more to post reviews on. And they have apps. Not a big fan of the apps. It's like, oh, we have an app because we have to have an app, right? So I'm not talking about that kind of smart stuff. I thought the Averon rower was a great example. A lot of the digital rowers, like I had a Hydro for a while and also an Ergata when I was reviewing rowers. Really cool, very basic stuff. The Averon was really cool because it's got some really cool video games. It's got some actual well thought out gamification that motivate your workouts. I thought that the resistance and how the machine felt was really good. So I thought that Averon, I was really happy to see them at the show. But I think they're doing a decent job of it. But again, I still think that that's version 1. So that led me to think about where do these smart devices need to go. And first of all, I don't think that the smart devices for a long time are actually going to replace all of this stuff. I think there's a large place for actual moving weight through space. And I think that the smart devices are more going to augment our training. But here's something I realized, and this is going to tie the whole podcast together for you. Remember when I was talking about the reason why people use machines is because they lack that learning component, and how important CrossFit was to teach people how to use weight training. And I do a lot of programs, and on my website I do a lot of program reviews. I know I've said this a ton of times already and I haven't done it yet, but there are video program reviews coming. I've got at least 20 programs that I should be filming reviews on, and those will definitely come eventually. But what I realize is one of the things that all of those programs have in common is they all in their marketing, they're like, and it comes with 177 exercise videos to show you how to do the exercises. And every single one of them is the same. It's some dude, either the person who wrote the program, if they're in shape, like I'm doing a Jeff Nippard program right now, which is actually pretty good. It's his power building program, where he does the exercises. But it's just him, right? It's just him doing the exercise. Okay, I watched you do the exercise. That I still don't know how to do it. And for me, I do because I'm a personal trainer, but I can see the average person like, a lot of the other programs that I review, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, it has, even my favorite programs by Dr. John Russin, as awesome as, and he's got 400 or 500 video demonstrations. There's no coaching cues. There's nobody telling you how to do it. And this is where I think that the smart devices are really going to come into play. And this is one thing that I think Tonal actually did okay, at least it started to do it, was I would really love to see the smart devices start to give you feedback on how to do the exercises correctly and to integrate AI and a camera. And I know that, again, I think Speediance has a version of this built in, but where it can actually watch you do the exercise and tell you, hey, move your feet apart, spread your hands apart, tuck your elbows back, stand up straight, stick your chest out. To me, if we can get these smart devices to integrate into the equipment that we have and help teach people how to use the equipment correctly, that would be really cool. And speaking of trends, I am starting to see that. So another good example was the Ergata program, which is an upgrade to a water rower. It's a screen that you can add with some programming, but one of the cool things they have is their app. You can actually set it up to watch you row from the side, and it will actually tell you if you're doing it right. It'll tell you, hey, you need to drive with your legs more, you need to sit up straighter, you need to wait longer before you pull with your arms. One of the things with rowing is your arms are the last thing to pull, right? So like it can tell you that, and while it was rudimentary and it wasn't like having a personal coach there, with the speed at which AI is developing and the speed at which these smart devices are coming along, the trend that I not only am starting to see the beginning of, but the trend that I would really love to see is to see these smart devices really help people learn how to use this stuff so that we don't have to fill our garages with single-use machines. We can fill our garages with stuff that's built specifically for our garage, that has a bunch of different functions, and comes with an app that through the camera can watch us do what we're doing and actually tell us if we're doing it right or not. To me, would that put personal trainers out of business? I don't think so. I think there's value. There's always going to be value of having somebody there to coach you. But I wouldn't mind if more people who couldn't afford a personal trainer were able to get that type of help and start working out more, because as I've said a million times, I think everybody in the world should have a home gym, and I think these smart devices are a good entry point into getting people who are afraid to work out to actually train. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that that's a viable use for these smart devices? What do you think of the smart devices? I want to know, because I know some of you are at the show and you tried the Speediance stuff. Am I being too hard on them? Was it good? Was it not good? Was it disappointing? Did you think it was well made? Did it feel good? For people who tried the Vultra, what did you think? Do you think that that's an area where we're going, where is it just going to supplement what we do? Is it going to replace what we do? Super curious. It's super fun to watch this happen. I'll bet you next year there's 3 times as many smart devices as there were this year. But that was something that I wanted to know from you guys as well. And that is 6 trends. 6 trends? 6 trends that I saw at Home Gym Con this year in Louisville, Kentucky. And that gets us through another podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you guys about this stuff. Even though I'm talking to a camera, I always imagine that I'm talking to all of the folks that I saw at the show. So again, thanks for saying hi at the show, and thanks for watching, subscribing, liking, doing all the YouTube algorithm stuff. And until the next podcast, review, assembly video, whatever it happens to be that you tune in here for, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.